Hello and welcome to CodeRage Mobile. In this session, creating iOS applications that need to call iOS APIs. My name is Ohlsson, and let's get started. So what we're going to see examples of in this session are as follows. Wrapping the network indicator, a very simple example. We'll take a look at apple.utils.pass, something that David Clegg provided for us. That's part of the samples. We'll see how to open a URL in Safari. We'll take a look at a beta wrapper for advertising, the iAd framework by Simon Choi. And we'll take a look at how to use an in-app purchasing component from Flash AV software. So let's dig in. We'll start off with the network indicator. This is an example that I blogged about in end of April. On my blog here on blogs.embarcadero.com/AO. So what we're doing here is we use iOSApi .UIKit. We declare a variable shared application, which is a UI application instance, and we pass back the actual instance of the shared application coming from UI application, and it has an OC class, an ObjectiveC class reference here. And we see all this, how we have to wrap it, called .wrap, and then pass the reference back. And you'll see this kind of code all throughout the RTL. And then finally on our button, we simply call shared application.set network activity indicator visible. And in this case, we pass it the opposite of is network activity indicator visible. So if we run this example on my device, it looks like this. Bring it down a little bit. So when I click on the toggle network indicator button, you notice that the network indicator comes on, this little guy here. If we turn it off again, of course it goes off, back on, back off. So the next thing I mentioned was appleutils.pass. So let's go ahead and see how we can use that. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and add it in to my project. We go to Documents, Red Studio 11, Samples, Delphi, RTL, and Cross-Platform Utilities. Here we have apple.utils.pass. If I add that in and accept the warning, because it's platform dependent here, this is a wrapper for a lot of functions that you're going to need all over the place if you decide to wrap an API. Mainly type conversions back and forth between ObjectiveC and Delphi types, both for iOS and macOS 10. So if we take a look at the some of the implementation details here, what we're interested in is shared application, for instance. So here we see that he already has a wrapper for shared application right here for iOS, looking exactly the same as mine. But so this enables us now to simply go ahead and use apple.utils instead and remove our wrapper here. And our code becomes a lot simpler. We simply set the network indicator to the opposite of what it already is. And this takes care of the shared application wrapper. Okay, so let's run that. And it's coming up on my device. I do the same thing. I toggle the network indicator to on. And I toggle it back off. Very, very simple. The next thing that I wanted to show is opening a URL in Safari. So I had an example of that on my blog as well. Let's see, opening a URL. So we can take this code here. And why don't we reuse this this application quite simply? And we add a button here. Put a text on it. Like that. Double click on the button, put some code in here that I'm going to paste from my blog. So this is going to be open. Button 2 now. And of course you notice we had shared application already, so let's take that out. Okay, let's run it again. Just to make sure that it actually works as it should. Okay, we click on the Open URL button, and it goes ahead and opens the Embarcadero homepage. All right, so let's go see what it actually is supposed to be doing. We see that we're calling Open URL of shared application. Then we do some wrapping of something, and it looks like we are opening this URL here. So we have to cast it to a string, it has to be cast to a pchart, and that has to be passed to a NSSTR, which is an ObjectiveC type. You have to pass URL with string and all this kind of stuff. So this is the nitty-gritty details of actually casting the types back and forth between ObjectiveC and Delphi. Luckily, in this case, David Clegg in his Apple Utils wrapper also has, it's quite simply, open URL. So you can pass it like this instead. Now let's take a look at what it actually does. So here we see he's calling shared application.open URL, string to NS URL. String to NS URL, in this case, does exactly what I did before. It calls TNS URL, gets the ObjectiveC class reference, calls URL with string, wraps it, and returns the result. So it takes care of all that for you. So now, quite simply, we have a very simple line of code. Let's run that again. And the app should restart here in just a moment. There it goes. Now I can click on the Open URL button, and it does exactly the same thing again. The next thing we'll talk about is iAd, advertising. So Simon Choi has a blog right here, blog.naver.com. Simon Says, with a Z. He's based in South Korea, and he has a blog entry here showing you how to wrap the iAd framework and an example on how to do it. So here's the reference to the iAd framework. He declares an add banner view class and a delegate and a protocol and a few other things. And then he has a couple of events that come back on this component here, or this class. And you can download this code from here, which is what I've done. And I've wrapped it into my my little application, which is my analog clock right here. So he doesn't have a component for it, but he does have this iOS library iadd.pass. We can take a look at it, and it's obviously what was on that blog post. And the main thing here is a tios add component, this guy. So we're going to create that, an instance of it. We passed a height and a width, and depending on if we're on iPhone or iPad, the height of the ad will actually be different. On the iPhone, it'll be 50 tall. On iPad, it'll be 66 tall. All right, so let's go see what we're doing here. So on my form, here's my IAD. So in this case, I've instrumented with InApp Purchases as well, but very, very simple to get an ad in your application using this iOS library iadd pass file. You simply create an instance of tios add, pass it the height and the width, in this case, to position the ad at the bottom of the screen. And then I'm hooking into the on message to see if I'm getting an ad or if I'm not getting an ad, or maybe something else, maybe some error condition. So let's see, find declaration of this. Let's see what it actually does. So, okay, we create a delegate for the events. And like we had earlier, we initialize the frame to be of different heights depending on what device we are on. And we hook up the delegate. Okay, so then we have add message. This is a method that gets called whenever there's an event coming back from the add component. So if we assume success here, view did load add, then we're supposed to display the ad. So in this case, we'll go ahead and add a subview. This is a native UI view control in iOS. We pass it the iadd.f control, which is the UI view that we need to add in. And what we're adding it into, of course, is our super view, our main form, if you will. If we fail to get an ad, did fail to receive ad with error, then instead of showing a blank white space on the screen where the ad was, we can choose to animate the ad out of view or whatever. In this case, I simply remove the iadd.f control from the super view. So this is removing the UI view that is used for the ad from the form. So the way that looks in my shipping version of my app is this. So this is prior to an update, by the way. So this is what you get if you don't remove the super view. You saw the white space there. And here's, now it succeeded and got a real ad. Okay, so I just wanted to show that first, what it actually looks like in a real app. Okay, so now we're going to do, go ahead and terminate this one. We'll remove it. And we'll go ahead and run this application. So now we should see the new behavior. And you'll also see what it looks like when you're developing. When you're developing, you will not get real ads. You will get ads for the iAd network. Oh, and sometimes it actually gives you real ads, which is really interesting. Redeploy. And it should launch here. Okay, there it is. All right, so now I failed to get an ad, so you see there's no ad banner now. All right, we'll hang around and see if we can get some ads in a moment. Usually it takes like 10 or 20 seconds maybe if it fails the first time. And there we go. There's my iAd. Now we can click on it, of course, see what it's going to look like. It decided to go into landscape. It's fine. And it talks about the iAd experience and how to promote your apps. Okay, we can close that, go back to our app, and we have our ad banner. All right. The last thing that we're going to talk about in this session is in-app purchasing. So for this, I'm using a in-app purchasing component from Flash AV Software. The developer was kind enough to send me their component. So I've been testing it, playing with it, and helping him improve it, actually, for specifically for restoring previous purchases of non-consumable content. So let's start over here. The way you add content that you're supposed to be, the user is supposed to purchase, is you go into Manage In-App Purchases in iTunes Connect. Here you can see that I already have a pre-existing one. It's pretty simple to set it up. You call it something, in this case com.andersohlsson.analogclock.remove_ads. Of course, my app bundle identifier is com.andersohlsson.analogclock, essentially, so it was just made sense for me to add the remove ads. It's a non-consumable product. The pricing tier is tier 1. There's no free content for in-app purchasing. The obvious reason is that you're supposed to purchase something, so otherwise you'd just make it available for free in your app already. No need to purchase anything. So the lowest tier is actually 99 cents as far as the US store. The language, you can add languages to provide localized content, localized descriptions, things like that. In this case, I just have the display name is remove ads, and the description is remove all ads from this app. And hosting content with Apple is turned off. I am implementing this feature in code already, so I'm just checking later on to see if the content has been purchased or not. Okay, so that is how it works on the iTunes Connect side. You see also, of course, that I just added this on June 2nd to this application. You have, the first time you add in-app purchases, you have to add them and put them into review at the same time as the application that supports it. So once this application update is reviewed and approved, the in-app purchase will be approved as well at the same time. Okay, the other thing that we need is a test user so that we can actually log in and purchase the content or restore the content. And in this case, I created a user, CodeRage at Ohlssons.org. I will, of course, delete this user right after this recording is done, because you will, I'll have no choice but to show you the password. Otherwise, you'll think that there's trickery going on behind the scenes. Let's see. So let's just go ahead and run this application as is. It's actually the same application that I was just using. I'm just using the in-app purchasing component up here. So T in-app purchase has a couple of things that you need. Product identifiers needs to have the purchasable products that you have. In this case, it's just remove ads. And then it has a bunch of events. We have a purchase error. I'm not doing anything specific if the purchase fails. Product request error. I'm not doing anything specific there either. Products received is what happens when you get a product. And in this case, I'm checking whether the remove ads was actually purchased. If it wasn't purchased, then I'm creating the ad. So I'm not actually creating the ad on the screen until I know for sure that the product remove ads was bought or not. Purchase completed is the important thing here. So once the user goes through and actually buys this product, we get a purchase complete. The framework takes care of the entire processing of the transaction. So we know for sure that if we get an identifier that is equal to remove ads in this event, then we can go ahead and kill the ads. And kill ads in this case simply goes ahead and makes sure that if we have an assigned iAd component, then we go ahead and remove it from the super view. We dispose of the component completely, and we actually get rid of the interface that allows us to buy the product. So that is a segue to go back to the UI and see where is the actual implementation of the UI for buying the content. So here on the Setup tab, I have a view in my list box here that is called InApp Purchases. And the block Remove Ads simply has a Buy and a Restore button. The Buy button goes ahead and checks, was it purchased already? If that's the case, then we simply kill the ad and exit. Otherwise, we check if we can make payments. This is to, there's a restriction on the iOS devices that can prevent in-app purchasing, good for kids and stuff like that. So if we can make payments, then we go ahead and try to purchase. And of course, if we purchase it correctly, then we'll get purchase completed, that event. Let's go back here to design. On the restore button, we will simply call the method on the purchasing component called restore purchase. So going back to the event here on the in-app purchasing component, purchase completed, and kill ads. Just to recap a little bit here. So close the loop here. So what I'm doing here is simply getting rid of that UI support. Once it's purchased, you don't need to see it anymore. Of course, if you had more products that people could buy, then you wouldn't necessarily remove more than that one particular item. In this case, I get rid of the whole in-app purchasing block since there's nothing else to buy. All right, let's go ahead and run this. So here we are with ads. It's failing right now, but it'll come back to an ad sooner or later. So we would like to go ahead and go to the setup page, and we're going to buy. Let's try to restore it. Actually, we're going to try to cheat the system here. So let's hit restore. I'm going to sign in with CodeRage. At Ohlsson.org, and put in the super secret password. Like that. Oh, I must have failed. You notice that it doesn't do anything. That's because I didn't handle a fail event, so I still have ads in here. Okay, so, all right, let's go ahead and buy it. It's going to ask me, would you like to buy one remove ads for 99 cents? It also tells me that the environment is the sandbox, the test sandbox. We're not actually buying anything. We're just testing this against iTunes Connect. Yep, we go ahead and buy it. And we got that purchase complete event. And it removed my UI for in-app purchasing, and the ads are gone. So now I'd like to test the restore functionality. So I actually have to delete the application and redeploy it. And once it comes up again, it doesn't know that we've bought this before. So it's going to start displaying ads immediately in this case. It didn't fail the first time here. So let's go ahead and click on the info button. And now we hit restore. Oh, if I actually hit the button. Like that. I have to give my password now. It knows I logged in as CodeRage at Ohlsson.org before. So CodeRage 2013. Hit OK. And the on purchase completed event fired, and we removed the UI for in-app purchasing, and the ads are gone out of the app. So, and of course, that was the whole purpose here. The other thing I wanted to mention real brief is that, so this test account, you have to have a test account, this guy here, CodeRage at Ohlsson.org, in iTunes. It cannot be a regular account. It will fail. You can't test against a real account. So what I recommend always is that before you start testing, sign out, because the error, there's really no error. It just fails silently, kind of, when you try to buy something and test your in-app purchases. And you won't know exactly why unless you've done it before. So just a quick tip there. All right. So that concludes all the demos in this presentation. Resources, of course, you can check out my blog where most of this stuff has been documented or will be. My in-app purchasing version of my analog clock is still waiting for review, hopefully to be live in a couple days. The link for the iAd beta wrapper by Simon Choi, you can find it at blog.naver.com, Simon says. It's also linked from my blog, where I'm talking about his wrapper. And the in-app purchasing component is available from Flash AV software. You can just go to flashavconverter.com, look in the left-hand sidebar, and you'll find the in-app purchasing component for Delphi. So with that, I'd like to thank you for watching this presentation, and now we'll go into Q&A.
So again, just go to blogs.embarcadero.com/AO. And Anders, you've been busy triaging questions. You want to go through some of those?
Yeah, if I fall off, you have to call my cell phone. But
sure.
I answered a whole bunch of questions here. So there was somebody asking about a define that differentiates between simulator versus device. You can actually test on the CPU there. So I put in ifdef CPU ARM. If you test for that, you will know that you're on the device versus simulator.
And you can test for iOS in addition, just you don't know at that point.
You don't know if you're on the simulator at that point.
Right. Right.
Yeah, if-def iOS will be true on both simulator and device.
Yep.
So if you wanted to make sure that you're on iOS and on device, you can if-def on both.
On both, because eventually with Android, it would be CPU ARM, but it would be if-def, whatever it's going to be called, Android, AND, I don't know.
Correct.
Whatever the define's going to be. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody was asking about sending an email. You can do so with the Indy components, like you mentioned. You can also do it with the share sheet if you have iOS 6 or later, which actually 93% of iOS users have, according to the WWDC keynote, I think. What else? You could do it. You could do through OpenURL with a mail to link as well.
Yeah.
And of course, you can do. You can wrap the API for sending messages for I/O.
Yeah, we haven't wrapped the contacts thing yet, but you can get at the contacts through API and then find an email address to choose someone to send you. But I mean, a lot of components are planned for future releases and also in demos for other APIs.
Yeah, did somebody ask about Address Book?
No, but I knew it was going to come.
Yeah, Address Book is a framework that we haven't wrapped. It is something that we're looking at for the future, of course. Bluetooth, you'd have to wrap the Bluetooth API, the Bluetooth framework. You can probably just search that as well. I found a Stack Overflow link for the sensor information as well as reading barcodes. This is a commonly asked question, reading barcodes or reading QR codes in your app.
There was this whole thing of RS-232 and dock stations. I guess people have things they snap on to.
Yeah, I tried blogging that. Googling that, and it looks like there's actually 30-pin and Lightning pin to RS-232 device connectors somehow to talk to old-style devices. These days, I guess it would be USB, but this would be, third-party library, I'm sure, as well, unless there's something as part of the iOS framework that would directly talk to RS-232 using one of those dongles.
Yeah, if there's a static library, a .a file, you should be able to link. You'll have to pay attention to what functions they have inside and what types they're taking. What are they usually? Objective-C types? Depending on what the library was built with. C++. Right. I mean, it could be a C call if it's a C++ library with a exported C function. But I know people have these snap-on devices for things like credit card scanners and so on that they hook onto iPods and iPhones and so on.
Well, somebody said Simon Choi did barcode Z-bar. That might be interesting to look at.
Okay.
Any wrapper tutorial to integrate third-party iOS frameworks in Delphi XE4? Not any more than this. The other thing that you should probably take a look at is the where I pulled up the Cleggies apple.utils. There's a bunch of different things parallel to that as well that shows you how to wrap different things as well. He has the settings API on his blog post. I posted that earlier. So that you can put settings for your application in the actual settings app on your iOS device. Audio tool.
I'm showing his blog here. So it's blog.com/dclegg, CLEGG, what's appearing.
Yeah, and it was a blog from April. There we go, persisting settings in Delphi iOS apps right there.
Exactly. Yep.
He has a long article. You can click on the found on EDN.
Oh, sorry.
Click on Found on EDN. He has a really long, really good article on how to do it here.
Yep.
In Audio Toolbox, same thing. If it's not ready, it would be something that you would have to wrap manually.
Somebody asked how much money you've made. You said $1.62 from iAd.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it's going to be a big party, man! Oh man!
So when the in-app purchasing component gets approved, then I will clear, I think, 69 cents for each person that removes the ads. So that might be a faster moneymaker.
Okay. And you made a comment here. Somebody asked where's the purchase information saved?
You probably, for the reason that he mentioned, actually, you should probably persist it locally as well, so that you can, when you don't have an internet connection, Wi-Fi or 3G or 4G or whatever, you should be able to know what you have purchased. In my case, it just happens to be that the ads won't load and won't display, so you can't tell the difference whether whether you have bought the remove ad product or if you don't have a connection. So I'm lucky in that case, I guess. But yeah, so you should be persisting that for the current instance, of course, on your phone. Restore is very important when somebody uninstalls or installs the app again. Non-consumable products needs to be restored at that point, and also, of course, across all the users' devices.
Yeah, somebody was asking about audio framework wrapping and so on. I told people just send an email to john.thomas@embarcadero.com. He's the music audio guy. Also, Malcolm Groves. Malcolm plays guitar. JT is a drummer and guitar player, and I know he's working on some stuff related to music and MIDI interfacing and so on. He's got MIDI drums and things of that kind. So
there you go. There you go. So the one thing that I forgot actually in the video was the first thing that I'm doing with the InApp Purchasing component is I make a call to load products. That will get the products that are available for this particular app from the App Store. After that gets called back on success, you get a call to on products received. And you can check there whether some of them have been purchased, or you can display them in a UI so that people can buy if you have multiple ones. On purchase completed gets called when something is bought and or restored from the App Store. And if you're familiar with transaction receipt verification, that's exactly what this component handles for you. And also my in-app purchasing update of my analog clock is in review as of 90 minutes ago, so we'll see how that goes.
excellent. And then again, keep track of Anders' blog, because every time something gets accepted into the store of his apps, he posts on the blog. So, and then you can download it. You can also, I think you told people best way to find FireMonkey apps, find your apps, is go to iTunes and search FireMonkey, right?
Assuming that people put those keywords in, but I try to put the FireMonkey keyword in. I don't know if I put Delphi in, but I definitely put FireMonkey in for the clock. And there's a couple of other ones that show up as well.
Yep.
But it's not a guarantee. I mean, most people probably, they're doing their own product, and it's going to be for sale, or it's going to be a freemium thing, and they're going to put their own keywords in. There's no requirement to put in FireMonkey as a keyword at all. But we should probably try to do that for other apps that we're going to submit in the future as well.
Mirik asks how to print from iOS. Well, you can do share sheet as well, and then if you've got a connected printer or Wi-Fi printer, you can print. The other way would be to have, there's third-party components that do PDFs and do printing. You could connect on Windows if printing is done there, but share sheet lets you connect to a printer if you've got, again, a connected wireless printer connected to your iPhone. I've done that to print pictures and other documents from my iPhone and iPad.